Hi, in this demonstration, I'll explain to you how we can develop a simple web part. We know in the previous videos I did explain to you that there are two different types of ways of implementing the code-only web parts. One, we can either write code in the CreateChildControls function. The other one, we can do that using the renderContents function. In this demonstration, I'm actually going to override the CreateChildControls function to create a very simple web part. To implement this web part, let me take you to Visual Studio and trying to create a new project. And I'm going to put this into web part development, and I'll call this as show list of lists. And this is an empty SharePoint project, and we click on OK. I'm going to deploy this as a form solution to my existing team site collection. You can see IT training colon 2015. So I'll leave this as it is and we say finish. So as of now we have an empty SharePoint project, and right after this is ready we will be creating a code only web part to this solution. Everything is nice. So let's go back to Solution Explorer, and in the Solution Explorer I will try to create a new code only web part, and I'll call this as list of lists example, and we click on OK. So as soon as the code only web part gets created, you can notice that there are a couple of important files for you. There's an XML file which will actually contain the value, the group value, where this web part is going to be deployed. By default it is going to the custom group, and also you can notice there is a .web part file that has the title and description. So once we come back to our webpart.cs file, you can notice your class is inherited with .webpart class, and we have a couple of important using directives there. Now in the CreateChildControls function, what I'm planning to do, in my team site I've got plenty of lists with me. I've got products, I've got announcements, calendar, trainers list. We have plenty of lists. So I just want to print all the list names that I have in this site along with the list ID. You know, every item in SharePoint has a unique GUID, an ID what we call it as. So in my case I want to print the lists as well as the list ID here. So in the CreateChildControls function, you can also notice the most useful using statements, Microsoft.SharePoint and SharePoint.WebControls, and we have in the references the Server Object Model API already with us. First of all, I'm trying to get the web's handle, so I'm saying spcontext.current.web. So wherever this web part is being put, so it actually refers to that website. So spweb means it's an individual site, and I'm trying to find out all the lists available in this website. One list, it actually goes to the list object, and we are adding to the controls collection a new literal control that actually adds the list title followed by the list ID. You can see there is a list.title, this is a SP list object, and list ID. So this is a list collection and this is an individual list, and we are actually switching to the next line here. So what happens when I test this code, and it will actually show me all the lists that I have in this site on my web part. In addition to this functionality, we can identify as in this code that every list has a title and every list also has a unique GUID. So that means you can identify a specific title either by the title or by the unique ID as well. Let me show you in this example the first two lines. I'm trying to access an existing list. Suppose I'm trying to say sp list some object equal to web.lists of announcements. So you can notice in my team site I already have a site called as announcements. Of course that's not really having any data as of now. If you wish you can add some new announcements. Let's say there is a presentation on Silverlight 5 RIA services, and the same can be description, and let's say this will be expiring on 11th of January, and we say OK. So we have one announcement as well. So I'm actually trying to access this announcements list programmatically by supplying web.lists of the list name, and then I'm trying to say controls.add new literal control announcements.item.count. So that will show me how many records this announcements list has got. So this is how I can get the list collection, and if I wish to work with a specific list I can say web.lists of the list name. Another approach, we can also identify a specific list by its GUID as well. I'm trying to access calendar list that I have with me. So I'm trying to say sp list calendar equal to web.lists of new GUID of the GUID for the calendar. Of course this is not the correct GUID. I need to verify. So how do I verify the GUID of the calendar? In fact, if I would have run the program until now, I would have seen the calendar ID here. And because we haven't run this code yet, the other way what you can do, you can go to the Server Explorer, and then in the Server Explorer I have already expanded my under SharePoint connection the site IT training 2015. Under lists you can see we have our calendar. You can right click and go to the properties of the calendar, and you can notice the calendar ID pretty much here. This is the ID. So this GUID of this calendar I'm simply copying, and I'm trying to replace that here. So that's the GUID of the calendar. So now the good thing is the web.lists function, when it is actually expecting you, either you can pass a unique GUID, or you can pass the index, or you can pass the list name. So in this demonstration we have supplied the name, and of course we have just supplied the unique GUID as well. So as soon as the identification for the calendar is being done, I'm simply trying to say new literal control calendar dot default new form URL. So generally where every list has got some pages to add records, update or delete. So I'm just trying to print the default new form URL. So this is how we are able to identify a list by its name or by its GUID. Another approach that we can do, by using the new default form URL also, we can figure out what should be the list. I have another list of cal2, and I'm trying to say web.getList. I'm not saying web.lists, I'm saying web.getList of my cal object, cal.default new form URL. So we are trying to get a handle to a custom list based on the new default form URL. And then I'm trying to print the same information. This calendar object, this list object has got how many content types associated with it. So this is how we are actually printing 4 different things. First, this part will print me all the lists that I have in this site along with the title and the ID. The second one will print me how many records are there in the announcements list. The third one will just print me the default new form URL of my calendar event where we supplied the GUID, and this GUID obviously differs from my system to your system. And the last one, based on the new default form URL, we are trying to get access to this list. So all these things we did inside the CreateChildControls function. Let's go ahead and try to build the solution. And once we deploy the solution, we'll try to put this web part on a page. I'll say build and deploy solution. Now it's adding the solution, activating the features, and finally the deployment is over. It has activated the feature on its own because when I press F4 you can see the active deployment configuration is default. If I would have made this as no activation, then it would not have activated the feature, and we have to activate the feature by ourselves. Fair enough. So let's come back to the team site, and what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create a simple page, and I'll call this as test your web part. So in this new page we're actually going to put our new web path. So in this way, in this demonstration, I have explained to you how we can identify lists by its name, by its GUID, or even by its default new form URL. So I call this as test web paths, and I say okay. It's been already there, so we say test web parts 2. So we have a brand new web page, test web part 2.aspx. I can click on insert. I can say web part. My web part is in the custom group, and my web part is show list of lists, and we simply there's a show list of lists is my web part. I simply click on add. Now you can see all this output is coming because of my for loop. We have announcements list, and that's its GUID. Can you see for calendar it is printing the GUID as 9C212, and in fact that is what I was actually having here from the Server Explorer. And then finally it is also printing me that the announcements item.count is just one record, and list/calendar/newform.aspx, and that is the default new form URL for the calendar event calendar list. And when I'm trying to access the calendar with the new default form URL, and the calendar is actually bound to only one content type, so this one is coming because of cal2.contenttypes.count. So that's how in this demonstration we have explained, we've seen how we can iterate through the list of lists and their unique GUIDs, and how we can access the lists based on the list name, or by the list's GUID ID, or by its new default new form URL. Thanks for watching.